Hello and welcome to my VR experience, Constellation Quest. It is a short, interactive experience about the different constellations across the world that have used the star Betelgeuse and other stars used in the constellation we call Orion. The player can use their left trackpad or thumbstick to move and press it in to run. The right trackpad will snap 45 degrees and the ground button can be used to interact with those items that need picking up. The experience starts by informing the player of the premise with some text carved into the wall opposite the entrance. The player is then given their first choice, should they progress to the left or to the right. Should they go left, as the majority of playtesters do, they will find their path blocked by Scorpio, whose presence and purpose will become clear shortly. Being unable to proceed in this direction, the player must try the other, where they will find this drum on the ground and this lever on the wall, presumably to raise these bars. In this room, the player may learn about Scorpio, and how his mission is to attack Orion, and by extension, all the constellations in this temple. The player is charged to return the statues to their plinths, as they are what gives this place its power, and to trap Scorpio back in his cell, once again. Upon exiting the cell by the way they entered, as there is no lever for the other door, the player is confronted by Scorpio and must use this wall carving and the drum in this corner to banish him in order to progress. The player may now return to their first choice or come here for the first time. Either way, they are now armed with the knowledge on how to repel Scorpio and progress. Upon entering this room, the player may read about Osiris' mythos and how he was cut into many pieces before being reassembled by his wife. He is also associated with flooding the Nile. If the player returns all the pieces of Osiris to his plinth, as the wife did in the mythos, the room will then be able to return its power and remove this rock that has been blocking the doorway. A sound will accompany this to tell the user a change has been made to the world and they are on the right track. Osiris is not able to be removed from the plinth because his power is keeping the doorway free. Now in Orion's room, the player can open the two doors from earlier and re-enter Scorpio's cell, where they will find Orion stashed in a hole in the wall. Placing Orion on his plinth does not cause a noise as no change has been made, and the player can remove him again because no power is needed to fix any broken architecture. Let's just leave him on the floor for now. The player may now venture out into the snowy courtyard. Looking around, they can see snowdrift, a constellation we are about to be introduced to, and a doorway off to the right hand side. Once they have gotten halfway, a predator will approach from behind. But it is okay because Osiris has caused a flood to protect from Scorpio, leaving the player stranded but safe. If the player had neglected to bring the Tsuzumi with them, it will be returned to them, as will anything they tried to lose by throwing over the walls, or trying to clip through the floor or walls, or throwing on top of buildings. Proceeding to the right, as the closest door, due to the other being blocked by strategically placed snow, the player will find that it is dedicated to the Tsuzumi drum, and that beating it summons protective spirits, hence why Scorpio ran away from it earlier. The player must place the Tsuzumi on the plinth to repair this doorway and gain access into Wintermaker's room. Upon entering Wintermaker's room, the player may notice he is currently stuck under a canoe, an object which he is usually proficient in using, being a great Ojibwe canoeman. Reading the text, he also controls the winter and can be prompted to bring spring by shooting his constellation with arrows. Putting the Wintermaker on his plinth will fix this doorway, and should the player think that this canoe is a good way to cross the river, they would be right. While placing the canoe on the river theoretically provides a method to cross, the path is still blocked by Scorpio, so another method will be needed to repel him, as the Tsuzumi is currently holding up the architecture in its room. Entering now the other rooms, the player will read that First Slim One, the holder of this room, is only visible during the spring and summer months, which unfortunately it is not, hence the snow everywhere. Fortunately, the player may remember a way to bring about the summer. Shooting the Wintermaker once or twice will play a small success noise, telling the player that they are on the right track, but need to do a bit more to complete this section. Shooting the Wintermaker thrice, however, will make it summer, thus the snow will melt and First Slim One will become visible. Reviewing the text in the room adjacent to First Slim One's, the player can read that this constellation is to Scorpio what others are to Orion, in that it uses the similar stars, and that First Slim One can never meet First Big One on account of them being mother and son-in-law and it being a tradition of the Navajo tribe. This is reinforced, saying First Big One will avoid First Slim One at all costs. An observant player may have noticed that there is a statue attached to Scorpio, and that it is in fact that of the first big one. Attempting to bring first big one and first slim one together will cause Scorpio to flee. The player is now able to corral Scorpio back into his cell. If the player traps Scorpio in a room by closing the bars and approaches with first slim one in hand, Scorpio will hide in a hole, like so. Once the player has trapped Scorpio in his cell, and they don't approach with the first slim one, they will still be unable to retrieve first big one, as Scorpio is noticing them. The player of course will need to distract Scorpio. Fortunately, they have access to what Scorpio hates the most, Orion. Placing Orion on his plinth will cause Scorpio to attack it, and he will be so distracted that the player can sneak behind him and retrieve first big one. Placing these last two on their respective plinths, while respecting their wishes not to meet, the player can successfully restore the temple and complete the game, whereby they will fade to this celestial realm, where they will receive the thanks of the anthropomorphized constellations, and are instructed to raise the statue of Orion to see more of the work from the temple's architect.